All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to hold everybody else up while we're waiting for some of the other folks to join. So we're going to start off today with a little bit of a touch base. We have now completed our week one of the challenge, and I know for me it seemed like a very quick week. For some of you, it might have seemed the same, or some of you it might have been very long. And exhausting. But nonetheless, what I want to do first is take some time for all of us to reflect on how we did. But before we do that, let's talk about some quick logistics. So we're going to spend about 15 minutes just chatting at first. And then we're going to kick it over to Karen Smith, and she's going to take us through eating smarter. All right, which I'd be willing to bet that we all could do that a little bit better. Okay, so she's going to walk us through that. She's going to give us a whole bunch of information for about 45 minutes. And then we're gonna kind of take a little quick breather after that, and we're gonna do a little interactive session where we are gonna join our breakout rooms and have a conversation around how did we do? What did we do well? And why did we do well? Where did we struggle? And how can we, overcome obstacles and do better next week? And then after that, we're gonna kick it to Isabella, and she's gonna take us through a presentation on moving more, the benefits of physical activity and exercise. And then from there, we're going to wrap up with some Q&As, questions, discussion, and then we're going to send everybody off for week two. So we're going to be focusing a little bit more each week on different content. So week one, we talked about committing. Commitment is huge. We talked about progress. Now today, we're talking about eating smarter and moving more. And then next week, we're going to jump into sleep and stress. So how can we manage stress better, and how can we sleep more soundly? So you'll see as we go through the challenge, it's going to continue to compound and build on top of each other. All right, so with that being said, let me open it up, guys. Who wants to share some information about how'd you do? So how'd you do? Where'd you struggle? How can we better help you? What type of resources would you like us to provide? Who wants to share? And by the way, if you want to talk, just go ahead and unmute yourself and then go ahead and share your thoughts. You can say anything you'd like.
Well, my physician's assistant is lowering my blood pressure, so that's very encouraging.
That's great. Great job, Lisa. Yeah, that's super exciting. Well done. Who else would like to share?
Oh, come on. I can't be the only one.
All right, while you guys are waiting or trying to find your
Am I allowed to share?
Yeah, absolutely, Karen. Go ahead.
Like I set a goal, just like everyone else did last week, to not eat after dinner. Like I've really been eating food after. I'm not hungry. I'm just like, oh, granola, that's yummy. So let me get a bowl and have 5 of them. And it doesn't feel good. Like I'm just like, oh, like as I'm eating it, I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, and have that like guilty feeling. So I said that I would not eat anything after dinner unless it was a whole food plant-based choice, or one other exception. So is I have some small squares of dark chocolate, and I never binge eat on those. Like I'll have one, I'm done, I'm great. So that's actually been going great, and I lost 2 pounds from making that change. And one night so this is what I think is most important to share. A couple nights ago, I was out on my deck doing work, and I came in around 8:30, and the dishes, I had cooked dinner, I came in from the deck, and like the dishes from dinner were still piled up on the countertop. And immediately I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that nobody did the dishes. I cooked, blah, blah, blah. And then my brain went granola. And so I've been learning in a program that I'm doing that like usually what we think is the problem is not actually the problem. Like it's not about the granola. It was how I was feeling in that moment, that stress, that anxiety, that like how come my husband didn't like see this and just read my mind and know to do the dishes? So it was more about like my lack of communication with him. And so that's something I wanted to share because, often, in working with my client, they're beating themselves up over choices that they're making, and it's usually not about the choices. It's like, in that moment, what are you feeling? Like, what do you physically feel? And if it's stress or anxiety, then that is that is something that absolutely causes your brain to be like, oh, food. So like focusing more on, what can be done to prevent that feeling, or another choice. Like I could have said, hey, Hogan, I wish I would have asked you to do these dishes. Do you mind coming here and helping me now? Like working out the communication. So just wanted to share that.
That's great, Karen. Yeah, that's a great share, and that's a good reminder. It's not always the bag of chips or the beer or the chocolate or the granola in that example. It's what's making us feel that we need that, right? And I can definitely agree to that in my own life. And oftentimes, it's not the food that I'm reaching for. It's the fact that I got something I need to work through mentally. So that's a great share. Who else would like to share? How we doing? We're gonna spend some time in our breakout room, but for now, anybody want to share how week 1 went?
Yeah, I had some dental surgery and didn't really want to eat much.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a bummer, Michael.
Well, lost a pound or two.
Well, hopefully your mouth is feeling much better now.
Yeah, it is. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Michael. Who else would like to share? How'd you do this week? Who struggled? Who did really well? Who's hasn't even started yet?
I tried to work on this.
You're cutting out a little bit, Charlotte.
Oh,
Go ahead. We can hear you now. Go ahead. Ooh.
am I there?
Yeah, you're here now. Go ahead.
Okay. Tried to do more oatmeal. 'Cause I just have it, but I just didn't eat it much, and I wanted to see if that made an improvement in anything. And I really like to just kind of set it in the jar with the overnight, and it's real simple. I take it in my lunch and have it for my breakfast with some fruit, and so that's worked real nice. And I did about 3 or 4 times this week. And then I was feeling tired a lot. And on Monday, I started increasing my exercise. And yesterday morning, I woke up and complete difference. I could feel days of exercise without losing it.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, so by doing some preparation and then moving a little bit more, you felt a little bit of an energy boost.
Yes,
Great.
big difference.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing, Charlotte.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, who else would like to share?
Hey,
This
Steve.
is great.
Oops, sorry.
That's right. That's right. My commitment was to establish a consistent time to go to bed, and I had some ups and downs. But when I did it, when I stuck to the time that I wanted to be in bed, I found that I slept better. So I still need to work on it because I'm not quite there yet.
That's great. So you're making progress.
Make progress, yes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Grace. Who else was going to share?
It was going to be me, Steve. I think Grace and I are on the same page. My goal was to try to sleep a bit more, and I think all but one day I got the 7 hours this week. So you always need somebody else telling you just do it. So
That's great.
it's kind of hard, but it was good. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Jackie, for sharing. Yeah, and what's funny is especially something like sleep, and I know I had a rough week of sleep just because I was putting other things over. It was more of a priority, but for me, I can definitely say that I'm with you on that, Jackie and Grace. I think that making that commitment, and I always say is for a good tomorrow, it needs to start with a good night's sleep tonight, you know, and if we have that mindset, it can really help remember why, you know. So keep up the good progress, Jack. Who else would like to share?
I have a weird thing to share. I dropped, well, I have this really great scale that does body mass and fat and fluid. And I was cleaning off my bedside table and a giant rock dropped on the scale and shattered it into like a billion pieces. So I was like, well, that's either a good sign or a bad sign, but I did okay. I did find that the snacking, I bought candied ginger, which it's a whole food, but it helped me, like Karen was saying about the dark chocolate. She doesn't tend to have as much of it. So that was sort of me with the candied ginger. I only had like maybe 5 pieces in a 4-day period, which they're kind of small and flat. They're like the size of a 50-cent piece. So.
Well, cool. So Julie, I guess an analogy we can all take, let's choose the positive and think that that was a sign that you're going to be crushing your weight management goals, right?
I really like that.
No, yeah, or it's a sign that you need to stop weighing yourself and you need to just
I thought about that too, but I kind of like to know, you know, when I feel a certain way in the morning, if I feel puffy or if I feel like, oh, my clothes feel really loose, I like to just kind of check and see where I'm at. But I haven't reordered one yet. I think I'm going to soon though.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing, Julie. Appreciate that. And keep the rocks out of your bathroom. All right, guys. So anybody else want to share before we kick into our first session today, which Karen's going to take us through Eat Smarter? Anybody else have a quick share?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on having motivation. So the whole pandemic, I've not done very well, which is when this challenge came out, which is why I wanted to do it. I was like, I have to get back on track. And I made a commitment for each of the 6 sections that we talked about last week. And I nailed it. I did 100% plant-based. The sleeping part, again, that's something I need to work on, but I lost 4 pounds last week and I feel better. And it's just amazing to me, just committing to a challenge changed my whole mindset. So
that's great.
Thank you for putting this out.
Nice work. Nice work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
A round of applause. Woohoo, Kim. Great job. Yeah, and what's so great about that, Kim, was, and I love how you said, I made the commitment to improve in all 6 of these areas, and that's what it takes. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Making that commitment, and that's why we're challenging you guys and ourselves too. We're right there with you. We always want to be better and improve as well. So keep that up and now continually build progress in each of those 6 areas. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
So quick segue before I turn it over to Karen.
I got something else to say. Wait.
Oh, go ahead, Sue.
My problem is that I'm really getting tired of eating the same old stuff. I need recipes, and the pictures on the handouts are really, really nice looking, but I couldn't find a single recipe on the paperwork. So if anybody has any recipes, my email is slafamina81@gmail.com. I'll be very happy to accept. Now, I don't like tofu. I have tried it for over 40 years at different occasions, and it just makes me gag. So I don't cook it. John could like it, and he can make it himself if he does.
It's okay. I'll pass.
But just so if anybody has any, I would truly appreciate it.
I do have to tell you something. I have a bean dip problem, and those just black beans and chickpeas mixed with anything in a blender with like cilantro or fruits or even the cucumber and avocado. Oh my goodness. I mean, that kind of helps me with a lot of cravings.
It's just even just
And it's easy.
for meals, you know, I use black beans, I use chickpeas, I use pinto beans. I mean, I've had more beans in the last year and a half than I did in my previous 60 plus years. So, you know,
Lentils, farro.
that's right, lentils.
Quinoa.
So
We've got them all.
you know, it's like cooking steak 7 days a week and burning the crap out of it. And it's like, I'm tired of it. And I haven't had steak in over a year and a half. So
I would suggest
Oh, go ahead,
recipes
Michael.
recipes on PCRM.org. It's Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. PCRM.org. And they've got a lot of great recipes there and pictures.
thank you.
Nice.
You know,
Thank
thank
you.
you. As long as they taste good.
And they have that
Thank
21-day
you.
kickstart that you can do,
Right.
and they have great recipes on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what we'll do as a takeaway, and we'll send out, we did this with the last challenge we had. We had a document that said whole food plant-based resources, and it had cooking shows, websites, all kinds of free resources that are out there. So we'll send that out as a follow-up. So I'll attach that, and then we'll also get that posted to the website under week 2.
Okay.
But that will give you a lot of good resources too. And that's something that on the Eat Smarter and the Move More and all those sections, we're in the process of building out each of those pages. So we're going to continually add more and more information. Isabella and Sophia have done so much great work of starting to compile and organize that. So we're going to continue adding the how and the recipe.
Make sure you add desserts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our new favorite, you'll see Sophia posted on the website, is a chocolate banana ice cream with walnuts.
I saw that. I was pretty good. I was trying to get the recipe,
Yes.
but I couldn't find it. So.
No recipe on the site just yet, but it's basically frozen bananas, walnuts, and cocoa powder. And that's pretty much it. And you
Yeah, it looked good.
blend them in a blender or food processor, and you go. All right, guys. So I'm going to stop everybody here. I'm going to hold my story for a little later. And Karen, you ready to take over here?
Yeah, let me share my screen.
So guys, a little segue, just a reminder for those of you who have not met Karen. Karen is a registered dietitian, and she is an awesome person. And so we're excited for her not only to be part of our team, but to be able to take you guys through this presentation on eating smarter.
All right, thanks, Steve. All right, so we're gonna start by doing a little visualization, and everyone can hear me, right? Okay. All right, so I want you to imagine, first, forgot this was the first slide. Okay, so I've divided this presentation into 2 parts. And the first is talking about achieving healthy weight. And that was the #1 goal of participants in the group. So I thought, like, in trying to get all of the pieces of nutrition into just one presentation, that is challenging because there's so much and like so many awesome studies. So the first half is going to be about how to achieve a healthy weight. And the second part is going to be more about disease prevention and reversal. All right, so now we're going to visualize. So I want you to imagine that you live about 13,000 years ago. All right, like this is your environment. So, you know, imagine waking up in the morning, walking out of your hut made of tree branches and clay and leaves, and this is what you see. All right, and feel free to like unmute yourself or type in the chat box, like, what are you gonna eat if this is your environment? And what do you need to get your food? Any thoughts?
Berries.
Berries? Yeah, all right. What else might you eat?
Nuts.
Any ideas? Nuts? All right. Maybe some tubers. How about other plant foods? You know, in an environment like this, you'd be able to distinguish like the greens that were edible. All right, wait, I'm seeing comments here. Let me open the chat box. Berries, leaves, greens, mushrooms, great. All right, so far everybody's saying plants. Do you think that you would eat any animals?
No.
No? All right, maybe not.
Fruit?
Fish?
About fruit?
Fruits, absolutely. Whatever grows in this environment here. Fish, not frequently, was the response about eating animals. Okay, all right, and so maybe some small mammals, right? But you'd have to like catch these things, right? Yourself. So think about, I want you to think about how much energy you would expend in your day just getting food to eat. And what would be sources of stress in this environment? Like what would cause you to feel stress?
Hunger.
Dangerous animals being killed.
A drought.
A drought. Okay, survival. All right, great answers. Okay, so up until about 12,000 years ago, this was, you know, how humans existed. This was the natural food environment. And actually, this picture here is from National Geographic not so long ago. This is a picture of the Hazda who live in Tanzania. And it's a small tribe that still exists of modern day hunter-gatherers. There are not very many left. And they are still living the life that, you know, we just described. So now let's fast forward to today, if my computer will do that. All right, woohoo, here we go. All right, so now you walk outside and what do you find? What are you gonna eat? How much energy
Berries.
so you might still choose berries, right? But like
salad at McDonald's.
Salad at McDonald's, right? Your environment looks a lot different. How much energy does it take for you to get your food throughout the day?
It's just walking.
And what causes you stress?
Cars honking.
Horn honking?
Yeah, like just trying to even pull into some place like that.
Okay. What else? Let me open up the chat box. Work, gaining weight, no. Okay. How about like maybe family, coronavirus, social distancing, right? Like all these things, finances, lots of things cause us stress. But do you notice the difference in the stressors?
Yeah.
Right. One was a real threat of imminent danger, like you might be killed, so you better do something, right? Like run away or fight, right? And those aren't the stressors that we tend to have in our modern environment. So the point I'm trying to make with this is that while our environments have changed dramatically, and even within just the past 100 years, our food environment has changed dramatically, our brain has not. All right, so our brain is hardwired to want the foods that give us the most calories for the least amount of work. Because in that first environment that you saw, that makes absolute sense for survival, right? And when you feel stressed, like when you, and maybe like, you know, you can try to think of a situation in your life now that causes you some stress, like try to feel what that feels like in your body, like that still sends the same message to your brain that that stress thousands of years ago sent, right? We still have the same response to stress, meaning our brain releases the same type of flight or fight hormones. And in regard to food, that makes us want food more. All right, because our body's in a state where we think, or our brain is sensing like, hey, you need some energy. You're feeling stressed. You're going to have to fight something or run away. So you better get some food. And I think it's really, really important to understand this because our current environments in the food industry are totally working against us. All right. The food industry is one of the powerful, most powerful, most makes the most money, and their job is to get people to buy food that they're going to continue to buy, right? Like get them hooked on these foods that cause our brains to release dopamine and make us feel good in that moment. All right. So that can be important in understanding like, oh, how do I overcome some of the choices that I make now when it comes to food? All right. So when it comes to making diet changes, I'm curious to know what people have tried in the past. Like, have you tried certain diets? Shout them out. Anyone try paleo or Weight Watchers?
Paleo.
Weight
yeah.
Watchers.
Yeah, Weight Watchers has the best business model because you can become a lifetime member, right? Like they don't ever want you to leave. You just keep coming back. Whereas, we want to give you the skills to be able to do this on your own in a pretty short amount of time. Keto, somebody said.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for some reason, here we go. Atkins, South Beach, right? My favorite, so my personal favorite, the Hollywood cookie diet. Like,
Never heard about.
Yes, who thought of that? Love it. All right, so there is an easier and healthier option because what happens once you stop doing those diets? Like, is anyone doing the keto diet after 20 years of doing the keto diet?
It hasn't been around that long.
Well, it has in very specific situations. Yes, so there's only one clinical situation where the keto diet has been shown to be helpful, and that is in people who have epilepsy. You got it. That it does not respond well to medication. Okay, so, right, those diets work until you don't do them anymore. So I want to share that there's a much easier and healthier option, and it's called calorie density. It's probably my most favorite thing to talk about, and in my opinion, the simplest way to think about food. If you can master calorie density, you can make decisions no matter where you are. So these stomachs are showing you how much food it takes to fill your stomach, right? For how many this is 500 calories. All right, now this isn't actually real, obviously, right? But the point is that you can eat a lot more foods when you're choosing whole plant-based foods for the same amount of calories as something like oil or cheese or other animal-based foods. Yeah, and I'm so excited to tell you more about it. It's honestly what has changed my life and like my relationship with food, because I'm done counting and like worrying all day. Oh my gosh, how many calories is that? How many grams of this or that? You don't need to do any of that. You just learn to eat the way humans are meant to eat, and you can eat more for less calories. All right, so here is calorie density. Did anyone happen to see there's a chart on the Transform website under the resources that is another version of this calorie density chart? Okay, so if you see, and the way calorie density works is if you take food and you're comparing it by weight. So if you had an entire pound of non-starchy vegetables, it would only be about 100 calories. So has anyone ever bought like a 1 pound bag? And some are a little higher, some are a little lower. Like a 1 pound bag of baby carrots, for example, or a 1 pound bag of whole carrots. Entire bag, if you want to sit down and eat it, is not even 200 calories. All right, so lot of volume, very few calories, packed full of nutrients, antioxidants, fiber, water. Now, the very opposite end of the spectrum, the most calorie dense food on the planet is oils, all of them. Doesn't matter if it's olive oil, coconut oil, corn oil, safflower oil, avocado, they're all the same in regard to calorie density. and just 1 tablespoon, because remember, this is per pound, and the number got cut off. Oil is 4,000 calories per pound compared to vegetables that are 100. Now, you're going to say, I'm not ever going to eat a pound of oil, and that's probably true, but you might eat a tablespoon, and that 1 tablespoon has more calories than the entire pound of vegetables. All right, so to put it into context, you can see, wow, if I just choose smarter and eat more of the lower calorie density foods, I can lose weight and still eat a lot of food. And research shows that on average, people eat the same amount of food. Like at the end of the day, if we weigh your food, your brain wants to be pretty consistent with the volume of food that you're eating per day. So if you can make that volume be lower in calorie density, I will bet money that you'll lose weight, if that is your goal. And researchers have really tested calorie density and found that on average, at the end of the day, if you added up all the foods that you ate, the calorie density of them all, and averaged it, if it is just under 600, that is a strategy for weight loss. So certainly not encouraging people to be keeping track of all those numbers, just be keeping track of the types of foods that you're eating. So it's the fiber and the water in the low calorie density foods that creates bulk, and that is what fills you up. All right, so if we start with the lowest, right, those non-starchy vegetables, think of any vegetable that's not a potato, or a couple of squash that are more starchy. Pretty much everything else can be lumped in this category. You can't eat too many in a day. Like, no one's going to eat 30 pounds of vegetables. It's impossible, I think, right? That's a lot of chewing. So my question to you is, how many vegetables are you eating now? Like, if you sat down this week or tonight and just wrote down what you ate today, how many vegetables are in your day? What will you do to eat more, right? Like, where are areas where you can throw some more veggies in? And then the next lowest in calorie density is fruits. Okay, so only 300 calories per pound. Researchers have tested this again, giving people 20 servings of fruit a day to see if they would gain weight. The answer is no. It also does not impair blood glucose. So eating fruit is not the same as eating refined sugar. And there's a lot of misinformation about that out there. So keep in mind that dried fruit is much more calorie dense than whole fresh fruit or frozen fruit. Why would that be?
Because there's no water.
Right. And it's what plus water gives you the bulk? What's the other component?
Fiber.
Yeah, you got it. All right, so when you take the water out, right, like if you have a cup of grapes, same amount of calories as a quarter cup of raisins. So you take the water out and it becomes more calorie dense. So same thing with fruits. How many people are eating fruit every day?
Yes.
All right. How many people are eating 2 servings of fruit every day, at least? Right? Like, these are questions you can start to ask, like, is there room to add in more fruit? Next, one of my favorites, potatoes. And like, I wish I could see all of your faces now. I can't, but usually people are like, what? I can eat potatoes? I thought that they were like gonna make me gain weight overnight. And the answer is they're very low in calorie density. What is it that happens to the potatoes that we eat?
It's the toppings.
Yeah, it's all the
How they're
cheese, right? Oils if they're fried, the bacon bits, the sour cream. The potatoes themselves, low in calorie density, packed full of nutrients and fiber, and one of the most satiating foods on the planet. So those fruits and vegetables that we went over first, wonderful and low in calorie density, but you'll probably find they don't keep you full for a very long period of time. That's where potatoes and the other starchy foods are wonderful, because they have less of a water content and they have a higher fiber content. That is what fills you up. So next, looking at our unrefined whole grains. So I'm talking about whole grains that have not been processed, have not been ground down into flour and then made into something like bread dry cereal, things like oats and brown rice or black rice, wild rice, quinoa, lots of varieties of whole grain rice, lots of varieties of whole grains. So this can be an opportunity maybe to like experiment and see what's out there and try something new. If you can, boil water, you can cook grains. It's that simple. And they can be a wonderful base for soups or bowls with beans and vegetables. And they are a food that are absolutely associated with less disease risk, like the more grains that people consume, the more whole grains. All right, so next is legumes. So beans, lentils, and peas. Again, like you can't eat too many. And I encourage people to eat them every day. Like how many people are eating beans or lentils or peas or tofu, edamame every day?
All the time.
Yes. All right. So like if you're not eating them every day, I'd say bump up your intake gradually, all right? Because your gut wants to get used to all of that fiber in the beans in a way that, you're going to tolerate. So maybe add in a quarter of a cup this week, and next week bump it up another quarter of a cup every day. But beans in particular have been shown to be really beneficial for weight loss. So in a study where people were randomized to either a group that ate but was told do nothing but eat 5 beans per week. Don't change what you're eating. Don't change your exercise. Just eat 5 cups of beans a week in addition to what you're eating. Or a group that was told to reduce their caloric intake by about 500 calories a day. Guess what? The group that ate the beans did better in terms of weight loss and had, as good or better improvements in things like blood glucose and reduction in waist circumference. So who doesn't want to, lose weight by eating more? All right, so just to give you some more context of how this works, this is what 300 calories looks like. What's going to fill you up more?
Potato.
Potato.
The sweet potatoes. How about this? This is 3 pounds of broccoli or just 3 ounces of cheese. Same amount of calories. Like who can sit down and eat that much broccoli? All right. And same thing, like you could drink the apple juice, or you could have the 3 whole apples that went into making the juice, right? Because when you have the juice, you're taking away the what?
Fiber.
The fiber. So now right, if you take away the fiber, if you take away the water, the calorie density is going to increase. All right, so just adding like calorie density and fiber, my favorite things to talk about. So adding more fiber, like if that's one thing you focus on by eating more of those low calorie density foods, automatically you're going to consume less calories at the end of your day. So what does 14 grams of fiber look like, right? Like what does that mean? So that is about the amount of fiber if you were to have a cup of oatmeal. So often the serving size is a half a cup. And I'm saying if you're still hungry after eating half a cup of oatmeal, eat more. It's okay. Like you can eat as much as you want of those low calorie density foods until you feel full. So a cup of oatmeal with some berries and ground flax seeds or maybe some walnuts, 14 grams of fiber, easy. 1.5 to 2 cups of a nice vegetable lentil stew, 14 grams of fiber. A cup of black bean and corn salsa with a sweet potato, 14 grams of fiber. So even if you're making smaller changes now and just focusing on like 1 meal a day being plant-based, you can get to 14 grams of fiber, which is, almost as much as what the average American eats for the whole entire day. So any guesses on how much fiber is recommended for the whole day?
Is it 40? Is it 40? 40 grams, I think.
That's what we're going to recommend. So the USDA recommends less than that. 27 grams for adult women, about 35 grams for adult men. But to really optimize your consumption of whole foods, to really reduce your disease risk, we encourage people to aim for at least 40 grams of fiber a day. The average American gets 15. So we are a fiber deficient country. And one of the huge benefits of fiber that also is associated with weight is that it is the food for the probiotic bacteria that live in your gut. And those bacteria, those microbes, do tremendous things for your health, and they need food, right? So instead of spending money on probiotic supplements that honestly aren't shown to do anything long-term for people's health, if you eat healthy whole foods with fiber, you are going to keep the bacteria, the probiotic bacteria, thriving because you're feeding them. That is what they eat. They need food. You don't digest fiber, the microbes in your gut do. And when they digest it, they release or create lots of compounds that help reduce inflammation, that help with regulating blood pressure and blood glucose and cholesterol, and they play a huge role in your immune system. And so adding more fiber is a really, really good thing for fostering a healthy gut microbiome. So we talked a lot about the low calorie density foods. What are the high calorie density foods? Fat, right? That is what you find in oil. Oil is just 100% fat, is the densest source of calories. So aside from oils, where else do you find fat?
Cheese.
Cheese. Where else?
Meats.
Meat. Where else?
Fish.
Fish.
Mhm.
Nuts. Yeah.
Dairy.
Awesome. All right. So meats, eggs, pizza that's like double, triple whammy with the, oil and the cheese and the meat. Oils, processed foods like donuts and cookies and cakes, cheese and nuts. So of all of these foods that are high in fat, what do you think would be the best choice?
The nuts.
How come?
Or a whole food.
Plant-based food.
It's a plant-based food. So what does that mean? What does it have?
Fiber.
Yeah. And lots of nutrients, lots of vitamins and minerals. So I always like to point out that, like, if you're talking about different meats, we've all, or at least I know I have, and I think a lot of people have been taught that, like, chicken is a lean meat, right? So if you break it down by that calorie density, if you have 100 calories of the leanest cut of beef, 29% of those calories are going to come from fat. Look at skinless chicken breast. It's not much lower, okay? So chicken is not a lean meat, especially compared to your plant-based foods, right? So rice, beans, broccoli, all of those low calorie density foods, they have fat. All whole plant-based foods have a combination of fat, carbohydrates, and protein. And the ratio of fat in these foods is such that it provides the fat in the amounts that we need as humans. Like, yeah, sure, we need some fat, but like, who's seen people walking around in America fat deficient? Like, we don't need to be seeking it out. It's in these foods in the quantities that we need. And maybe you add like an ounce or two of nuts or seeds a day, awesome, you'll be good to go. All right, so just to point out, like, if you think about how our foods have changed in terms of the way that they're processed too, that plays a role in why chicken is no longer a lean meat. All right, they are absolutely bred, even chickens that, are labeled organic, pasture raised, all of those things, those labels are there to make the consumer feel good. They really don't carry much weight in this country. All right, it doesn't mean that that chicken necessarily was outside living a good life. They go from birth to slaughter in just 6 weeks, and they're huge when they are slaughtered. All right, so oftentimes chickens have heart attacks before they even make it to slaughter because they are bred to be so big. So they're not a lean meat. So how about exercise, which I know Isabella's going to talk more about later, but you know, you may have heard like you can't outrun a bad diet. And I'd say that's absolutely true, right? And seeing that list of high calorie density foods, you know, it takes a lot of work to burn off calories in a small amount of those high calorie density foods. So when it comes to weight loss, it absolutely is true that, you know, focusing on what you're eating is more important than the exercise. I'm not saying exercise isn't important, because it absolutely is for like 1,000 reasons. But for weight loss specifically, really focusing on the foods is the most helpful. Okay. Anyone recognize this guy? Has anyone ever heard of Josh LaJaunie?
Yes.
What do you know about him?
Just, I mean, just what it shows there, that he,
Yeah.
you know.
He used to be over 400 pounds, and he grew up right outside of New Orleans, like eating all the really rich New Orleans food. And he was the guy, you know, he says, like, I was the guy who did all the cooking, drank all the beer, like that was him. And he lost over 200 pounds and was featured on the cover of Runner's World. Like, never in a million years thought he would be running marathons and ultra marathons, because at 400 pounds, he could barely run a city block. And one thing that I've learned from him in a book that he authored is to think of foods, if you were living in that natural environment that we shared in the beginning, right? Like, if you think about, like, okay, in a natural environment, what is the natural attainable quantity? Like, if I walked out of my hut in the morning, how many chickens could I catch and eat in a day, right? It wouldn't be very many. And now in the United States, we kill 1 million chickens an hour. That's how many chickens Americans consume. All right. So think about the environment that they're being raised in. Like, when you start to learn all of this, like, all of those things factor into what you're eating and your health, and lots of other things as well. The environment and how much waste is produced, and the life of the animals as well. How about this one? If you walked out of your hut, how many pretzels could you find?
0 pretzels.
Yeah. So I like to share this because, right, they're low in fat. They don't have that many calories. They're actually still very high in calorie density, and they're just not a naturally attainable food in that natural food environment. So I'm not saying, like, don't ever eat a food that's, you know, not in that environment. That's not my intention at all. I just think it's important. Like, I love this concept because I think it really helps in making healthy food choices, in what are truly healthy food choices. So eggs is a good one. I like to share this. So how about this? Like, if there were birds laying eggs in that natural environment, how many eggs would you gather in a day? What do you think? Anyone have any idea how many eggs chickens in particular lay in a natural environment, not being bred and fed to lay more?
You don't lay them every day, right? I don't think.
No, they only lay about 12 to 15 a year.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so now we just have these massive factories where chickens are bred to lay many, many more eggs than that. And there are millions of them shoved into one house. All right, how about berries? So this was one of the foods that somebody mentioned. How many berries could you eat?
I know.
Probably
as many as you could
Exactly,
find.
as many as you could pick. Like, no limit on berries. All right, so that's part one. I am going to speed through part two because I have like 7 minutes left. And we're going to talk about disease reversal. So here's what we know. We know that our food choices in the US, #1 cause of death, and that the vast majority of chronic disease is entirely preventable with lifestyle. All right, and of these lifestyle choices, you know, shown here, alcohol consumption, smoking cigarettes, being sedentary, and eating unhealthy foods foods is, you know, again, like what's associated with the most deaths in the United States. So what do we mean when we say an unhealthy diet? So the World Health Organization defines it as one that's low in whole plant-based foods and one that's high in processed foods, animal fat products, sugar, salt. So what are we eating? Oh, there's the picture. All right, look at all that bright colors. These are the foods you want to be choosing compared to this. I do like to point out, even in the marketing of junk foods, they use really bright packaging and colors because our eyes are drawn to them. Our eyes are naturally drawn to the bright colors and natural whole foods. And if you start to pay attention to the marketing and branding of processed and junk foods, they're not in brown or gray packages. They're bright colors that our eyes are going to be attracted to. So here's what we're actually eating. Look at this. Only 9% of the calories consumed in the US come from vegetables, fruit, and legumes. Close to 70% from animal products, added fats, oils, and sugar, right? So we are far from eating a healthy diet. And one thing I like to point out or ask is like, what do you think is probably the number one or close to number one reason people give for not wanting to adopt a plant-based diet?
Too expensive.
What's that?
They say too expensive.
Too expensive. That I'd say that's not the number one reason I hear. What else?
Not enough variety.
Not variety, did somebody say?
Yep.
Okay. I'd say that that kind of goes along with it. Yeah, protein's up there, and that kind of feeds into it too. It's like, I'm going to be deprived. I can't give up all of these foods that I'm used to eating. And I like to show, like, look at the foods that you haven't been eating. Like, some people have never eaten a bean in their entire life, or a lentil, or like huge categories of foods that you've deprived yourself of for decades of your life sometimes. All right. So if you can change your mindset to think about like not what you're giving up now, but like all of the foods that you've not experienced or ever tried, I think it can be a good way to have a more positive spin on it. All right. And so specifically with heart disease, if you've heard of Dr. Dean Ornish, he is a doctor who showed that people with advanced heart disease, meaning that they had an artery in their heart that was very clogged and didn't even qualify for surgery, like a surgical intervention, were able to reduce how clogged that artery was by making lifestyle changes. So just by eating a mostly, so not even an entirely plant-based diet in his original diet, it included some low-fat dairy and eggs, a half-hour walk daily, managing stress, avoiding tobacco. Look at the results after a year. Look how much cholesterol fell. The most important thing, like landmark studies showed that over 80% of the participants actually reversed how clogged that artery was. It's amazing, without any drugs or surgical interventions. There's like no drug on the planet that has that type of effect. All right, so this is what we're talking about, like actually opening up that artery. And so this is what happens. If you've seen the movie The Game Changers, I stole this from it. To actually, like, right, we can't see what happens inside our bodies. And if you could, after you eat a meal that's high in fat, especially saturated fat, like within an hour, your blood becomes more viscous. It's actually more thick. It's harder for your blood to flow. All right, there's less oxygen delivered to your muscles and your tissues. All right, so you can see how that can lead to high blood pressure over time, high cholesterol over time, increase your risk of heart disease. Whereas when you eat plants, this, you know, look at that blood, it's entirely clear still. All right, so here's what happens. Because your body absolutely has the ability to heal itself if you allow it, right? Like, think about what you eat and the choices that you make throughout the day. You go to bed at night, and that's your time for your body to like start getting to work doing repairs from damage that have occurred during the day. And so if you wake up at 8 o'clock and you eat, you know, a sausage egg McMuffin, well, now you have that thick blood, right? And right about the time that your body is like healing and the blood's becoming more clear again, you eat it's time for lunch. And now we're eating all of the foods that cause the blood to be more thick and for inflammation to occur. And the same thing happens throughout the day. It's a vicious cycle. So we don't ever allow our body to heal it, because when we're laying down and resting, like, we immediately re-injure ourselves in the morning with the first meal of the day. So if you just stand back and stop injuring yourself, really awesome things happen and your body will heal. So when it comes to salt, processed foods, animal-based foods, top sources in the US diet. All right, you don't see a single whole plant-based food on the list. So just by adding in more of those foods, you're absolutely going to slash how much sodium you're consuming. And I love this study. So if we take people, this study was looking at people who didn't exercise very much, eating an omnivorous diet. And they wanted all the participants to be about the same weight. So they found athletes eating a standard American diet who ran almost the equivalent of 2 marathons, about 48 miles a week for 28 years. That's what they averaged. Like, we're talking big time endurance athletes eating a standard American diet. And then people who ate plant-based and hardly exercised at all. All right, no surprise, like the people who don't move and don't eat great had a higher blood pressure. And keep in mind, so these were all normal weight people. No one was overweight in this study. The endurance athletes, yeah, great, right? Like, you think that's a little bit high, at least the top number. But look at the people who didn't exercise at all, eating plant-based. And they were eating whole food plant-based, not processed foods. Amazing. All right, for diabetes, it's really important to understand the cause of diabetes, and that is having a high-fat diet, especially high in saturated fat. Fat interferes, so fat gets stored in your muscles and your liver cells where it's not supposed to be stored. Those organs are not meant to keep a lot of fat. And the fat inside your muscles and your liver is what interferes with insulin's ability to communicate, to allow sugar to exit your bloodstream and get into your muscle. Your muscles want the blood glucose. But when there's lots of fat in your muscles, your brain thinks, there's a lot of fuel in here already. I don't need any more energy right now, because you have all of this fat already stored. So again, if you allow your body to burn through the fat that has been stored by taking in less fat, diabetes can go away. Type 2 diabetes I'm talking about, or pre-diabetes. All right, and we know that diabetes can be reversed with weight loss. This study was just showing, like, the more weight that people lost in a year. So when people lost about 32 pounds at the end of the year, over 80% of the people who lost that amount of weight, or close to 90%, totally reversed their diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And as the amount of weight lost was less and less, fewer people in that group totally reversed their diabetes. So you can reverse type 2 diabetes with weight loss, but how do you lose the weight and keep it off, right? We want to do it in a healthy way. So another option is to rely on a whole food plant-based diet that's really high in fiber and low in saturated fat. So in one study where participants were fed and fed and fed and not allowed to lose any weight, but were eating only whole plant-based foods, their diabetes was reversed. And that's what this is showing you here. All right, like, people with diabetes for decades taking insulin saw amazing improvements, taking less medication, in this study where they were eating plant-based and not allowed to lose weight. So how long do you think it took for people to get these results? The other study where people lost a lot of weight over the course of a year, diabetes was reversed. How about when they weren't losing weight, they weren't allowed to lose weight, they got weight every day. If they lost weight, they had to eat more beans, more oatmeal. Any guesses?
3 months.
6 months, 3 weeks. Here we go. And wait a second. There we go. 16 days. 16 days people achieve those results. So amazing. And again, like I can't stress the importance of fiber enough. Like adding more fiber to your diet significantly reduces your risk of developing diabetes. So this here, like, right, it's like, oh my gosh, is that like very close to zero when people are eating 65 grams of fiber in a day. And in many of the studies where people completely reverse diabetes, they're eating diets that have at least 65 grams of fiber per day. And that also reduces your risk of heart disease and cancer as well. So just to reiterate, what foods have fiber? Shout them out.
Vegetable.
Vegetable, fruit,
Plants.
whole grains. Nuts.
Oh, I heard someone say it. I think it was Michael. All whole plant-based foods, all of them. Yeah, so all the ones that you shouted out, great. All these foods have no fiber. And so right now, high-fat keto diet's super popular, and it only treats the symptom of diabetes, which is your high blood sugar. So if you don't take in any carbohydrates, then sure, you won't have a high blood sugar, but you're not getting to the root cause of reversing that fat buildup that's inside the cells, right? So, and high-fat keto diets also increase the risk of all-cause mortality. So not a healthy way to go. And what this graph is showing you, this is just after 2 days of people eating this first line that goes up real high. Okay, that's what happened after people ate a high-fat keto diet for just 2 days. And then were fed a high-sugar meal. This is how high their blood sugar went. In 60 minutes, it was up over 220, okay? Compared to someone eating a high carbohydrate diet, but low in fat, right? You don't get that same spike in blood sugar. So the point I'm trying to make, and something that I've seen a lot in patients, is that when you do a keto diet, your blood sugar might be low, but if you are challenged with carbohydrates, it shows you that you still have diabetes. It's just you're not getting to the root cause of the disease. So someone mentioned earlier, like protein, oh my gosh, where am I going to get it? It's everywhere. It's in every whole plant-based food. Every whole plant-based food has every essential amino acid. If you ate nothing but broccoli and you got enough calories that you needed, like if you needed 1,600 calories and you consume 1,600 calories of broccoli, that'd be a lot of broccoli, you would not be protein deficient. You'd get all your essential amino acids. So protein deficiency, I haven't seen it in the US in like generally healthy individuals. The only time I've ever seen it is in patients who are, you know, on hospice care and just not at all eating. So don't stress about the protein. Now, if you want to swap your protein, your animal protein for plant protein, that's a really good choice. And there are more and more studies showing that to be very true. And this was a Harvard Health Professional study done in 2016, had over 130,000 participants that were followed for about 30 years. And they found that replacing just 3% of calories from animal protein with plant protein reduced risk of death. All right, so these numbers, these reductions in death are just if you replace 3% of the calories that you consume of animal protein with plant protein. So that's like replacing 1.5 ounces of, or 1.25 ounces of chicken with a 1/4 cup of chickpeas. So think about if you did a whole lot more than that, how much greater the effect would be. And again, just to stress that like a plant-based diet gives you all of the nutrients you need, except for one. There's one supplement that everybody should be taking. Even if you're not eating plant-based and you're over the age of 50, what should you be supplementing with?
B12.
B12, you got it, vitamin B12. And we'll post, I will post something tomorrow about vitamin B12 on the website. Diet and cancer. Again, whole whole food plant-based diet wins out in terms of reducing your risk of cancer. The same diet and lifestyle program that showed that heart disease can be reversed was put to the test against prostate cancer. And people who were in the healthy group doing the lifestyle changes saw a reduction in their PSA, or prostate-specific antigen. That's amazing. That's like the cancer is no longer growing. It's going in the opposite direction compared to the control group where the PSA continued to go up. And these are the strategies that are absolutely best for people who want to reduce the risk of breast cancer by 62%. That is how important lifestyle is for preventing breast cancer. So maintaining your weight is one of the best strategies for reducing your risk of almost every type of cancer. And so hopefully the first presentation gave you some strategies for how to achieve a healthy or healthier weight. And here are the foods most associated with cancer. I'm gonna go really fast. Sorry, guys. And soy foods, I just have to scream out that it's not true that they increase cancer risk. They don't cause cancer. It's the absolute opposite of that. That whole or minimally processed soy foods are correlated with the reduced risk of several types of cancers. And they're also shown to help lower blood pressure. All right, dairy, I just like to point out that it's not something that any human needs, right? It is meant to make a baby grow. So just like human breast milk is meant for a human baby, and once that baby no longer needs its mother's milk, like it doesn't even make sense that we should be drinking the breast milk from another mammal. So there's no need for it. It causes a lot of inflammation, and it's associated with increased risk of a lot of different chronic diseases. All right. I think I'm going to let everybody look through these on their own, but just to say the healthiest living, longest living populations on the planet, the blue zones, this is how they all eat. All right. They don't eat a 100% plant-based diet necessarily. 95 to 100% plant-based. They think of animal-based foods as foods to have on special occasions for celebrations, holidays, things like that. And I just love their little food pyramid here. I think it'd be great if the USDA adopted something more similar to this. So I'm very sorry I went over. It's hard to put it all into a little bit of time. So that is everything on nutrition. And just to let you know, like all the small changes that you make add up, right? Like it absolutely is not all or nothing. Adding one more serving of fruit a day, adding one more serving of beans, like all of those things make an impact and absolutely add up over time.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Really appreciate you clarifying that for everybody. And it's absolutely okay and great that you went over. I know that this is such an important area of not only what we all need to focus on for health and preventing disability and death and all that, but also it's the most highly desired from our participants as well. So as of today, we have 57 participants, and a good majority of you that submitted your goals all had nutritional based goals. So that's really great. So thank you, Karen, for that.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. So we're going to jump for about 10, 15 minutes into our breakout room. So I'm going to open them up to everybody, and I'm also going to put in the chat right now what I want you guys to talk about. So there will be each one of our Transform team members in each breakout room. So we just want to have an informal, relaxed conversation. You may or may not be with the same folks from last week, but basically what we're going to talk about is what did you do well during week 1 and why? And then what are you planning on doing during week 2? What are we going to commit to, like Kim mentioned earlier? What are the things that we're deciding we're going to commit to? And let's have a conversation about it. Let's put it out there. Let's tell some people. Because keep in mind that the social support aspect is huge when it comes to health and well-being and living a healthy lifestyle. Tell people about it. Shout it from a mountaintop, right? Do whatever you have to do, but let people know what you're working on, because it gives you that added little bit of accountability, but also support. All right, so let's jump in our breakout rooms now, and then we will come back together, and Isabella is going to take us through Move More. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump in our rooms.
Oh,
Hi,
no.
guys.
Hello.
Are we
Oh,
doing?
gosh.
Let me see here. Who do we have?
What happened?
Did you join your room, Kathy?
Yeah, I did. And something happened.
I guess you're in our room then. Let me see here. So how we doing, guys? So how'd we do week 1?
Oh, gosh.
Did
Let me
we
see
do
where
okay?
I did okay. I got my husband to substitute a black bean burger for his red meat burger. That was really super big.
That's great. And
Really big.
What did he think, Michelle?
He liked it, but he kept saying, I think Karen might have told you, he kept saying, I'm going to lose man points. I'm going to lose man points for this.
No,
Like, don't tell anybody.
He's actually gaining man points, right? If you really
Yeah.
thought about it. Now that's great. And how about the kids? Did the kids try the black bean burger as well?
No. That's the next struggle. Yeah. But no, he did. He liked it. And I mean, I eat veggie burgers anyway, and the bean burgers, I haven't eaten meat in a while, but just trying to get the kids on board with it, and especially seeing him and him making good decisions, because the boys definitely follow him.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
and he has that whole red-blooded American, you need to eat bacon, you need to eat red meat, and that's what I'm trying to change.
Yeah, such a misconception. And one thing, I might have mentioned this to you last week, but watch the Game Changers with your boys, with your kids.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
They will absolutely, Michelle, you will see it change their thoughts. And instead of just following your dad's or your husband's example, they're also going to start to say, I can do this. So every time we watch that movie with our kids, they instantly want to exercise more, and they instantly feel better about eating all the vegetables and everything, and eat more of them, and they eat them, and then they show us their muscles, and it's incredible. So, but good job. Okay. So for you, Michelle, what are you planning for week 2? So I want everybody to share week 1 and then share what you're committing to for week 2.
For me personally, for week 2, I need to work more on the sleep. I think that's finding out that's my real weakness. Is staying asleep. I can fall asleep fine. It's staying asleep. It's not the wake up at 3 a.m. and then, all through the early morning. And I also want to finally try this overnight blueberry oatmeal that was being talked about last week.
It's awesome. That's great, Michelle.
So that's the goal I have.
And it is awesome. You will like it, and you will love it when you wake up in the morning. You don't have to worry about breakfast. You tell your kid, grab your bowl and scoop it out. And I would say we probably do that 4 to 5 days a week. So it's really great, and the kids love it, and it gets you out of having to make pancakes because you tell them it's already done. You don't have to worry about it. All right. Well, great. Thank you for that, Michelle. Thanks for sharing. So how about you, Kathy? How'd you do week 1, and what are you doing week 2?
Well, the first thing was eating before I go to bed, eating late after dinner. And I've been trying to be more conscious of not picking up something during the day that I shouldn't. I think our meals are pretty good, at this point. Of course, it's been a year and a couple of months we've been, plant-based. So, and of course the garden's rolling in now. So it's like, you've got to eat this stuff. But I think it's just eating late, and, probably, breads. Every once in a while I've got to have, it's not white bread, it's a good bread, but it's still bread, and I shouldn't be eating, I need to cut down on that stuff. So.
Yeah, and if you want, when you think about it, you don't have to necessarily get rid of the bread completely, but maybe try to get some breads without oils, maybe, get something that is a healthier option of bread, and it's not so addictive like some of the other stuff. Because I know that when you eat it with the high salt and the high additives and things like high fructose and the more artificial stuff, the more we can't stop eating it. So that's a good strategy, is just to switch to a cleaner form, or even do what we did for a while with the bread. Was we started freezing it all. And then we would basically pull out, we had certain bread for the kids, and then me and Karen had different bread, and we would pull out what we wanted, toast it for just me and her, because it made it more inconvenient to have to go and get more. So just a little strategy for you. But
Okay.
well, thank you for sharing, Kathy. So how about you, Mary Ellen?
I think my eating went pretty well this week. My kids did try what I make, not very much. So I'm still making separate dinners for them and my husband. But I made like a peanut noodle thing with vegetables that they tried, but then had the other dinner.
So here's something you might want to start to shift with is make some of their favorites that you know they love, right? So if they love pasta, if they like this or that, figure out what it is, and then just figure out how you can do some swaps and how you can go through and start to maybe do a little bit of transitional foods. You know, maybe it'd be the soy-based meatball, or something that is not going to necessarily be a long-term healthful strategy, but it can help you get them over the hump, so to speak. And one thing I will tell you is having supported different families and transitioning with my wife and our family as well. Eventually, you're going to want to stop cooking 2 meals. So if they're hungry, they're going to eat. Okay. So same thing goes with Michelle. Don't be going out of your way to make it easy for them not to conform. Okay. If you and Michelle both as mothers said, this is dinner, if you're not eating this, go ahead and fix yourself something. They're going to be a little more inclined to try it. So I just want to throw that out there too.
True.
So for week 2, what are you thinking, Mary Ellen?
Week 2, definitely sleep also for me. A little different than Michelle. I tend to, I put the kids to bed and then I'm like, okay, here's some me time. So I just go to bed later than I probably should. So just kind of switching that mindset and trying to go to bed earlier would help get the full 7 hours at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Mary Ellen. Appreciate you sharing that. How about you, Carol?
Hi. I did pretty good on all of the goals that you guys set, except the eating. I was totally off on the eating. I did incorporate more fruits and vegetables than I normally do, but I told the person I was in the group with last time, my cousin told me about this, and I joined it. I'm not looking to go completely plant-based, but to definitely learn some healthier tips. So I did add some, not as much as I wanted, mostly because here in New York City, I'm still a little scared to go to the supermarket. So we stock up all at once, and I haven't gotten a chance to go and restock a lot of the fruits and vegetables, and Misfits can only deliver so much. So, but I'm trying. So I'm still counting it as a success for what I am trying to do. So.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for sharing that, Carol. And just keep telling yourself progress.
Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah.
Make progress. And your journey, like you said, you might not say I'm going to go 100% plant-based, but I know I can go a heck of a lot closer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And just start doing little small things. And I can tell you, if you make one daily improvement each day, it's going to compound. So even if you said, all right, this week is all plant-based breakfast and healthy lunch and dinners, and then next week you're going to add in all plant-based lunches, and then maybe all plant-based dinners, you're going to realize that your palate's going to change. And then some of the things that you're holding close to you now, you'll start to be a little bit more freeing. And I always ask people, what percentage are you? And some of the folks even doing this challenge would come every single month and say, I'm 50% plant-based. I'm 60% plant-based. I'm 70% plant-based. And so they would continue.
Yeah.
So just know that as long as you're committing to improving, you absolutely can and will do well.
That's my goal.
So thank you, Carol, for sharing. All right, how about you, Linda, aka Mom? Let me unmute yourself, Mom. Hold on, I'm trying to unmute you. You got to unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
I think we did good. We usually do good. We're pretty much plant-based all the way, except for little cheats here and there. And, we do the exercises, and, we try to be as healthy as we can be. I don't know.
How about for week 2? What are you planning for week 2? How can you step up your game a little bit?
I guess to get Dad to exercise more.
Okay, this isn't about Dad. This isn't how can we fix Dad. This is what are you going to do week 2 to improve?
I guess basically because we eat that way, I guess just basically exercise more.
So since you have an injury, what could you do? Upper body strength training? Could you do something like that this week?
Yeah, more weights, more floor exercises. Yeah, for sure. And now I have new exercises for my foot. So
Yeah. No, that's good, and certainly injuries are a pain in the butt. But yeah, that's something that just consider what week 2, and even write it down. I remember Dad always would tell me, write down your goals and then sign it. As cheesy as that might sound, when we sign it, we commit to it and we put our name by it. So that's good. Well, thanks, Mom, for sharing. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to close out the sessions. But what I'll tell you is, for me personally, I'm doing decent, but here's what I've noticed is this week I've been sacrificing sleep. And so similar to Michelle and Mary Ellen and some other folks, and we've been doing a lot of home renovation projects here at our house, and you can probably see some of it in the background. We're working on our chairs and all that good stuff, but on our table. But what I notice is it has a spiraling effect. So essentially, when I don't get enough sleep, the next day I eat worse. And the next day I'm more tense. And when I'm more tense, I'm more frustrated. My relationships are worse. And so what we have to understand, and this is a good moment for us to think about, how all these areas are interrelated, and how when one is out of whack, it's going to affect the other. Okay. So most times we're eating poorly, not to, like Karen said earlier, it's not because we're hungry. Half the time we're not even hungry. We're eating it because of an emotional reason. We're trying to fill a void of some sort. So just try to keep that in mind as we move forward, and I'm saying that to myself as well, but how can we continue to make progress each and every week? All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this and then close the room here. All right.
You're muted, Steve.
I said some good jokes too, and nobody heard it. They were smiling, and I thought they heard it, but
I saw your mouth moving for a while, and I was like, is he talking?
nobody in my group told me. Thanks, Michelle, Mary Ellen, Kathy. Oh, Michelle said she was telling me. All right, I missed that. Well, maybe week 3. I'll commit to week 2, remembering for week 3 to end the breakout room and then take myself off mute. But no, all joking aside. So welcome back, everybody. We should have everybody here. So let me give you a quick introduction of our next topic. And if you need to run to the bathroom, grab a quick snack, go ahead and jump up, do what you need to do. I'm going to introduce Isabella here, and then she's going to take us through Move More. So as we think about everything Karen said, Karen gave us a lot of information. So a personal challenge to all of us is write down what it is you're willing to commit to when it comes to eating smarter. It doesn't have to be completely 100% change. It can just be, all right, I'm going to eat fruit with every meal, or I'm going to eat vegetables before I eat anything else, or I'm going to stop drinking anything but water, or I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day. Whatever it is, commit to it. Write it down. Write down what it is that you can do to eat smarter, to move more, and then focus on that throughout the week, as well as the other 4 areas. Just keep in mind what we talked about week 1 is committing and making progress. All right, that's what we each deserve, to continue to commit and make progress and become the better version of ourselves. And if we have the intention of, oh, I'll think about it and then I'll just do better. Naturally, you know what we do? We do the same. I'm a creature of habit just like you guys. We all do that. So here's an opportunity to challenge ourselves this week with week 2 to get better. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Isabella. She's going to be taking us through our Move More presentation. And if you haven't checked out any of Isabella's stretching breaks or workout routines, Isabella is a group exercise instructor, and she's a highly passionate one at that. And she's going to be taking us through moving more. So as she's taking us through the presentation, I want you to start to reflect on what it is that you can do to move more. What do you enjoy doing, and what are the little advantages you can give yourself through exercise and physical activity. So with that being said, Isabella, when you're ready, go ahead and share your screen, and then we'll kick it over to you. All right, whenever you're ready.
Sorry, yes, thanks for unmuting me.
No problem.
I am trying to share the screen. It's being a little slow, but...
And by the way,
Sorry.
guys, a little clarification. Isabella goes directly from teaching a group exercise class and then jumps into our challenge session right away. Not saying she looks like she just worked out, but
I do, but
but because of the fact that, you know, she's basically going from one good thing to another. So with that, Isabella, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
And quick clarification, Isabella, can you make your screen fit to page so that way?
Oh, yes, of course. I forget how I did that last time, though. Okay, 1 second.
Should be at the top where it says fit to page.
Fit to page. I don't see it here today.
See the letter O in the word more? Just go straight up.
More?
Yeah, move more in the title, the letter O in more, and just follow it straight up.
The first, it only says stop. I'm sorry, I have no idea how. What if I made it smaller? Like, did that help?
No, it's still cut off.
Really?
Maybe you're not seeing it on your end. On our end, we're seeing where it says fit to page in the top.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yay. Thank you, Sophia. You were totally telling me, and I just couldn't see it. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm not the best with Zoom, or with Internet Explorer, I guess. But this is better?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. So, move more. So, obviously, we're talking about physical activity, exercise. I know that you've probably been told 1,000 times, but it is so important to stay physically active. It's a very essential component of your health. So physical activity refers to all body movements produced by the skeletal muscles, resulting in an increase of energy expenditure. But exercise is planned and structured movements that's done to purposely improve or maintain components of physical fitness. And it's like Karen said in her presentation, I believe, exercising is important, but if you don't have the right kind of diet, you need both to maintain optimal health. And to lose weight or to maintain your healthy weight, exercising alone is not enough, but it is important. Wait, something's in the chat and I can't see it. What does it say? Please, please on the message below. Oh, thanks. Okay, he was just telling me to exit that out. Thank you. All right. Benefits of physical activity. There are lots. So, reduce likelihood of coronary artery disease, other cardiovascular diseases, physical activity, specifically aerobic activity, which I'll kind of explain later, but it improves your cardiovascular fitness. Getting more physical activity in and being more aerobically fit will reduce the stress on your heart, so your heart won't have to pump as hard every time it beats, which is good because you don't want it to work too hard. So physical activity will help with that, reduces cancer risk, likelihood of high blood pressure, reduces your risk of falls. Along the lines of that, it improves your bone mass and reduces your risk of osteoporosis, so it strengthens your bones, muscles, and joints. reduced risk of metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, improved weight management and immunity. And then it also improves your mental health, self-esteem a lot of times, increased energy, increased well-being, reduces your stress and anxiety, and improves your mood. So when you exercise, your body releases chemicals called endorphins that trigger a positive feeling in the body. So a lot of times when after you finish a workout, you'll feel that you are in a much better mood and have more energy when you started. All right, guidelines for physical activity. So adults are advised to get in at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity, along with 2 or more days of strength training per week. And that is just a guideline for adults over 18. Working with an exercise specialist is also recommended as the most reliable way to begin an exercise program. So I think one of the most common excuses that I hear that you hear people talking about for why they don't get in enough physical activity, or why they don't get in any at all, is because they don't have the time. And that's totally a valid excuse, and I'll talk about that later too. But there are 1,440 minutes in a day, and we're challenging you to set aside 30 minutes a day to get in physical activity. And I believe that's 10,080 minutes in a week. I didn't do the mental math. I did that math earlier. But 10,080 minutes in a week, and the recommendation is that you get 150 minutes of exercise. So that sounds totally doable. That's only a small chunk of the time that you have. So I'm challenging you to set aside a time of 30 minutes a day to get in some physical activity. And it doesn't have to be in a 30-minute chunk. So if you have trouble setting aside a 30-minute chunk of time, you could do 2 15-minute workout sessions, or 3 10-minute. That is the same. So if you don't have an actual 30-minute window, you can break it up, and it works perfectly fine too. And any amount of exercise helps. So it's always better to get in a little bit than none at all. So other reasons why also I wanted to say, well, we were talking about this again. I don't have enough time. Other tips that you can do with this is combining physical activity with things that are already part of your routine. So parking your car further from work, you have to, if you have a parking lot, if you park further or have to park on a floor where you have to take the stairs, I would recommend you do that, because you have to get there anyways. Oops, I think I'm drawing on this and I didn't mean to. Sorry about that. Or taking the stairs instead of the elevator, that's also a good option. Multitasking activities so that you can get in activity while also getting things done, such as making phone calls while going for a walk, or reading a book while on the treadmill. Also, yeah, there's so many things, and maybe I'll compile a list and send those out, but I can think of a lot of things where you can kind of incorporate it into things that you already have to do as part of your daily routine. So the gym is intimidating, another valid excuse. Especially now, I feel like there are so many ways that you can get in exercise at home because of coronavirus closing gyms and everybody staying home, quarantining. So there's so many workout videos online, lots of online programs, instructors doing virtual classes, and workout apps that are free and have great resources. I encourage you guys to try those out even once the gyms start opening back up, because it is oftentimes more comfortable for people to work out in the comfort of their own home rather than in a gym setting, because it can be intimidating for sure. Another tip for that is to find a workout buddy or friend to go with. Same thing here. If you get bored during exercising, I find doing it with other people makes it less boring. So finding a workout buddy and or trying group exercise classes, because the atmosphere of a group exercise class is supposed to be fun and the instructors are encouraging and lively, and there are lots of different types of classes to try out. Along with that, if you don't know what to do, you could try those classes. I love group exercise classes. Obviously, I'm biased because I do teach them, but there are so many different types, and the instructors will tell you what to do if you don't know what to do. Another tip for that one is to get a personal trainer or ask a friend who knows more about exercising to help you out. And lastly, I'm too tired. That's also a very valid excuse, but I would recommend pushing through, because exercising, you'll find a lot of times it will increase your energy. Your blood flow will increase and wake you up. A lot of times you'll find yourself feeling much more energized after you work out than before. Also, stretching, yoga, walking, Pilates are all low impact, low intensity workouts that I'd encourage you to do if you think that you're too tired. Stretching really is a good one, because stretching can be relaxing, stress relieving, and is a very important aspect of physical fitness that many people forget to incorporate into their exercising schedules. So, other tips for getting into exercise: choosing activities that are personally appropriate, convenient, and enjoyable. Starting slow, again, finding enjoyable activities. So you might have to do a little exploration, finding things that you like to do. Exercise is not one size fits all. Everybody likes to do different things. So finding what you like for you. So starting slow and then progressing to more strenuous or vigorous activities. Getting friends or family to be active with you and help keep you accountable. Accountability, definitely, if you get friends to work out with you, that will help with that. And it's very encouraging too. Scheduling workout time into your schedule like you would with other commitments. So kind of what I said earlier about how we have 1,440 minutes in a day. If you just set aside 30 minutes, so planning it a certain time, setting an alarm on your phone at 7 p.m. that you're going to work out from 7:15 to 7:45. If you coordinate your other activities around that, you might find that you do have the time, the 30 minutes a day to do that. And I know a lot of us, we like to sit on our phone before bed for an hour or 30 minutes, and I challenge you to dedicate 30 of those minutes to do something else, take a walk, do a Pilates video or a stretching video, and then you are putting your minutes every day to good use. And then also, it is not good to sit on your phone before you go to sleep, so that's a plus for putting that time into physical activity instead. And well, that was kind of a tangent. So another tip: ride your bike place instead of driving, park further from your destinations, and multitask, which I already touched on in the last slide too. So there are light physical activity that you can do, moderate and vigorous. Light intensity activities require the least amount of effort, and they don't provide the same health benefits as moderate vigorous activity, but they are still good to incorporate into your daily life. And these don't cause a noticeable change in breathing, in your breathing heart rate like the more vigorous ones will. But I want to explain, a MET is the amount of oxygen consumed while sitting at rest. So when you're just sitting doing nothing, that is a 1 MET activity. That's like the baseline. And light physical activity is less than 3 METs. So if this makes sense, 2 METs would be equal to 2 times the amount of oxygen consumed while you're sitting at rest. So the more intense the activity, the more oxygen, the more METs, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Moderate physical activity, 3 to 6 METs. These activities require more oxygen consumption, which is why it's more METs. and your heart beats faster than normal. You can talk but not sing while engaging in moderate physical activity. So there's this thing called the talk test where you can kind of test how intense the activity that you're doing is by the ability or by how well you can talk and maintain a conversation. So in moderate physical activities, you'll be able to carry a conversation, but you probably won't be able to sing a song. And vigorous physical activity, you will have difficulty talking, maintaining conversations greater than or equal to 6 METs, and these require the highest amount of oxygen consumption to complete the activity. So these will really get your heart rate up. And I've included this chart here of at-home activities, just to kind of put into perspective that sweeping carpet, 3.3 METs, doing something, moving furniture, pushing around heavy objects, that'll be 6 METs, so vigorous activity. Playing with your dog, 4 METs, playing with your kids, 5. So METs are really just a way, they're kind of like a measure of the intensity of using them to describe the intensity of physical activity. And here's some more activities: light, moderate, vigorous. You can kind of see those. I won't read through them all because of time, but yep. All right. Health-related components of physical activity. So there's aerobic fitness, muscular fitness, which includes muscular strength and muscular endurance, and then flexibility and body composition. So like I said earlier, aerobic fitness is the body's ability to take in and use oxygen to produce energy for prolonged activity. These activities make you breathe hard and increase your heart rate. There's so many benefits, but just a couple of them: improved cardiovascular efficiency and health, increases your stroke volume and cardiac output, which stroke volume is the amount of blood pumped from the ventricle during each contraction of the heart. Cardiac output is the volume of blood pumped each minute. So the more aerobically fit you are, the lower resting heart rate you will have, which is good because it means the heart has to work less hard to pump the same amount of blood, which is ideal. A lower heart rate implies more efficient heart function, and it's a sign that your heart is working well. So improved aerobic fitness is very important for your cardiovascular health. And also aerobic fitness is one of its benefits is improved body composition because it will help you burn fat. All right, muscular fitness. So muscular strength refers to the amount of force a muscle or group of muscles can generate in one contraction, and muscular endurance refers to a muscle's ability to exert force repeatedly without fatiguing, or the ability to sustain a muscular contraction for a length of time. So that is, you can see here, to improve muscular endurance, you're going to use lighter weights and more reps, while muscular strength, you'd use heavier weights and fewer reps because it's the max amount of force your muscle can generate in one contraction versus the length or the endurance. And benefits here: improved performance in lots of activities, injury prevention, improved body composition, improved self-image. So building muscular fitness will help you in a lot of your daily activities. Flexibility, the ability to bend joints and stretch muscles through a full range of motion. The flexibility is really essential for injury prevention and joint mobility. Body composition describes the relative proportions of fat and lean tissues in the body, not based on how much you weigh, but how much of your weight is fat as opposed to muscle. Excessive body fat can cause musculoskeletal problems and increase your risk of heart disease and high blood pressure. So this image on the right, as you can see, 2 people can weigh the same weight but can look different and have different compositions, so different ratios of fat to muscle in their body. So you can tell the girl on the left, although she weighs the same as the girl on the right, but she has a lower percentage of body fat. And going along with that, if you feel like you've been eating right and exercising and aren't losing weight, I would say don't be discouraged because you might be gaining muscle weight and that's where the weight might be coming from. So don't be discouraged by the numbers on the scale. If you've been working out and you're like, why am I gaining weight? Well, muscle weighs more than fat, so it might be that you're gaining muscle. And second to last slide, I believe. Sorry, I'm going over time. Activity types. So there's aerobic or endurance activities, including running, swimming, biking, hiking, playing sports, dancing, stuff like that. Strength and resistance activities. So these ones, that first bullet kind of touches on improving your aerobic fitness. You'll want to do these activities to improve muscular endurance and muscular strength. This includes weightlifting, pushing heavy objects, using body weight for body weight exercises such as crunches, squats, lunges, push-ups, stuff like that. Flexibility activities include stretching and some forms of yoga, sometimes Pilates, stuff like that. And balance activities include Tai Chi, forms of yoga, Pilates as well. Dance, I find, too, can improve your balance and flexibility. And lastly, important reminders. Wear comfortable clothing and footwear while exercising. Keeping hydrated is definitely important. You're sweating, losing a lot of water. So keeping hydrated before, during, and after exercising. Stretching to prevent your body from getting injured. Already touched on that. And kind of similarly, warming up before you start and cooling down when you finish. Also paying attention to any pain or discomfort you might feel during working out. So there's normal workout discomfort and burning, but then there's pain. So if you feel pain, you should stop before you risk injuring yourself or injuring yourself further if you've already sustained an injury. And following your doctor's recommendations concerning medicines or other health conditions that might be of concern. And also, lastly, well, I already touched on this in the beginning, and I didn't include this, but exercising alone is not enough to maintain optimal health. You'll want to eat a healthy diet too, so don't forget about all that important information that Karen taught us before this, because combination of eating healthy and exercising will get you to where you want to be, allow you to achieve your health goals that you listed on your Google form, and assisting you with your weight loss and weight goals. So yeah, both are important, but that is all. Let me stop sharing. That is physical activity for you guys.
Great, thank you, Isabella. Appreciate that. Any questions, guys, for Isabella?
Very good.
Thanks.
All right, so guys, as we wrap up today, I know we got about 10 minutes left, and I want to stay close to our time. And as always, we want to give everybody the time for additional support and questions and clarification as well. So as we reflect on today's topics, both eating smarter and moving more, we don't need to stress ourselves out about it and think, well, I'm not exercising and I need to exercise daily, or I'm far from plant-based and I need to go completely plant-based. Remember the phrase progress. We have to commit to it and say we want to be better. That's the first thing, but then we have to say, what are some actionable steps I can take to make progress and head in that right direction? So what I'd like to challenge everybody right now is write it down, type it, say it to your husband or wife or whoever you're with and say, this week I'm gonna blank. All right, shout it out. If you want to put it in the chat, actually that's a good idea. Let's all type it in the chat. Let's commit to it. Go in our chat box and type in this week what you're willing to commit to. All right, so go to the chat. You can message everybody and then just share what you're willing to do. And if anybody wants to share it aloud, let's do that now. But I can tell you, for me this week, I really want to make sure I get my 7 hours of sleep a night, because what I was sharing with the group that I had in the breakout session was, when I don't get enough sleep, that affects all the other areas. It makes me want to eat more, and it makes me handle my stress worse, and it affects my relationships. And so I'm curious to see, okay, so I see some stuff coming in. People want to move, people want to sleep more. They want to go to sleep the same time every night, move every day, you know, and just be something as general as that. Just move, make a commitment to moving more, walking more, 10,000 steps a day, going to bed earlier, eating more beans and legumes. That's a great goal. Like Karen mentioned earlier, the longest lived people in the world, one of the key staples of all those populations is they all consume beans, and they all consume beans on a daily basis. All right, so figure out how you can incorporate them with different meals. I see some here, eating more fiber. Absolutely, that's Karen, one of Karen's favorite words, and same with all of us. Fiber is incredible. If you focus on fueling your body with fiber, amazing things will happen. And not only will you reduce your risk or, treat chronic diseases, but constipation gets better, your skin gets better, energy gets better, everything goes back to normal. Improving breakfast and starting off with, good foods, more plants in your diet. Follow a workout guide. Vicki shared that, starting a workout routine, something like Hammer and Chisel or P90X or all these great virtual workout programs. Committing to better exercise, do a fitness blender one time a day. Okay, that's great. Just figuring out how we can, do different fitness activity or physical activity as well. Increase exercise, sleep plan. So there's a lot of great options here. And what I will say is stay the course. All right, and I'll give you an example. I put it in the email to everybody this morning. It took Michelangelo 4 years of laying on his back to paint the Sistine Chapel. All right, 4 years of laying on his back. He didn't even want to do it at first. The Pope at the time had kind of cornered him and said, I'd like you to do this project, and it was a way smaller project than what it ended up being. And needless to say, it was years and years of his life. And he is the definition of commitment for all of us. What we have to understand is a healthy meal here, a walk here, a good conversation here, not drinking once a week. Things like that are good steps. But if that's it, and if we're not consistent and if we don't stay committed, we're never going to see the benefits. All right, so our challenge this week is to remember what we talked about last week and keep in mind that all the handouts and resources are available on our site. I want to share with that everybody. Share that with everybody really quick. So if it's pretty user-friendly, if you're seeing my screen here, all you have to do is go under events and challenges, virtual challenge. All right, I gotta stop clicking. Week 1, week 2. So if you're clicking on week 2, you'll see our weekly newsletter that the team put together, and it has a challenge and a tip for each of our 6 core areas. But then aside from that, the calorie density video that Karen mentioned in her video, that's another registered dietitian, Jeff Novick, does a really great job of explaining that in a lot of detail. And then the calorie density chart, the Eat Smarter presentation that Karen walked us through today, the Eating Smarter handout, but then also the Move More materials that Isabella walked us through, and the presentation and handout. Lastly, Isabella did put out there a workout challenge for everybody. So you can see here that you can access the site and you will be able to tap into that resource and see a little bit of a workout challenge from now until next session. And then lastly, we put a whole food plant-based resources on here. So Sue, I know you mentioned it and some of your other members mentioned it as well, having all kinds of recipes. So if you see here on the bottom, click on those links and they're free and available resources to help you. Okay, so this is something that it's there and it's ready for you to tap into it. And then lastly, Sophia just posted some more resources quickly while we were doing our session of plant-based recipes. So if you click on this, it has all of our potluck recipes from an on-site challenge we did in January, as well as week-to-week suggestions of featured options from a week-to-week perspective. So when in doubt, tap into those resources and take advantage. But with that being said, I want to open it up for any final questions that anybody has. And also, if you want to stay on or have any more personal questions, you absolutely can stay on as well. So a round of applause for our speakers today, Karen and Isabella.
Yay.
Thank you, ladies. You did a wonderful job. And so I'll open up. Any questions, comments, thoughts? If you want to drop now, certainly feel free as well. So remember, commit to make progress and commit to being a better version of yourself and a healthier version of yourself. So everybody have a good night. If you want to stay on or chat longer, we're here for you.
Have a good night and a great week. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Good night.
Good night. Let's see.